Hey, good morning, everyone. Meteorologist Zach Batten for the Bell Park Weather Network. Happy Tuesday. It is good to talk to you all again. We've got a fair bit to cover this morning, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Here's what we're watching this week. Today, in particular, we have rain and snow expected across the region today. It'll be a mix of rain and snow depending on where you are. The further south you are, the more rain. The further north, the more snow. Because of the ground temperatures, we're not expecting any accumulation or really issues on the roads or anything like that. As we go beyond today, we're expecting a relatively quiet and warm rest of the week. As we go through the week, we will gradually warm up ahead of our next system, which will move in this weekend. And you've probably already seen some of the hype about the system coming in next weekend. Again, don't fall for it. Right now, we're leaning towards a heavy rainmaker and wind. So if you've seen people talking about a big snowstorm, something like that, while it's not impossible, current thinking is that that's probably not going to be the case. And we'll kind of go over why that is here in just a bit. So taking a look at your simulated radar through the day today, and see as you head out the door this morning, the mix of rain and snow is kind of still west of the Ohio border into our eastern Indiana counties, but likely there's still some dry air that's preventing most of this from hitting the ground. And as that precipitation falls into that dry air, it evaporates. And when it does that, it moistens the atmosphere. So eventually that dry air kind of goes away and the precipitation is allowed to actually make it to the ground. So as we go through the day, you see as things move east, it's still fairly light at this point as it's still battling that dry air. And as we go through the mid-morning, same thing. And then by about 9-10 a.m. or so, it's likely reaching the ground in most locations. And again, it's just a pretty nasty mix of rain and snow. So it's going to be kind of just a gross day. But because, again, ground temperatures are still fairly warm, surface temperatures, the air temperature is going to be fairly warm as well. So we're expecting southern Ohio likely to be in the low to mid 40s, and the rest of Ohio in the upper 30s, low 40s. So we're well above freezing. We're not worried about issues on the roadways or anything like that. You might see some slushy accumulation on some grassy or elevated surfaces if you manage to get more snow than rain. So something to keep out for, but again, not really expecting any issues other than some wet roadways. So if we move on to take a look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook, this is the day 6 outlook for severe weather, and this is for Saturday. So what we're looking at here is the area highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center as the most likely area currently to see severe weather on Saturday. And kind of what this tells us and what we'll want to watch the next few days is we're going to want to see if this area shifts east. Does it shift west? Does it, just hang out where it is? As this kind of gives us an indication of where that low pressure is going to travel. So right now, if we were looking at this, the low pressure would likely be somewhere in Oklahoma, and then be traveling up northeast closer to, Chicago, South Bend, kind of that area, the southern tip of Lake Michigan there. There are a couple models, which I'll show you here in just a second, that do have a track a little bit more to the east. So what we're going to do here just momentarily is take a look at the American model. So that is the model. It's a bit longer range, so what we're looking at is kind of the pressure change in the mid layers of the atmosphere. So if we progress this through, we're just going to kind of back up here a bit, and we're just going to fly through this week here because most of this week is fairly straightforward. So right now we're at Saturday. You see where the lines really dip down here into Kansas and Oklahoma. Right in here is likely your area of low pressure. So you've got your low pressure here. You've likely got a warm front extending out this direction somewhere, and then a cold front, trailing back like this. And that leaves this whole area right here, which is kind of where the Storm Prediction Center outlined as kind of being in what we call the warm sector. So you've got warm, moist air being pulled north from the Gulf of Mexico, and that allows ample moisture for thunderstorms. So as we progress through Saturday and into Sunday, you can see now your low pressure by, this is Saturday evening, is likely hanging out in here somewhere and into Illinois. And as we continue on, that low pressure really takes a kind of track in between about Chicago and Fort Wayne, and then up into Michigan, and eventually up into Canada. So this particular track, as outlined by the American model, would leave us on the warm side of the system, which will lead to fairly heavy rain, potentially an inch in some spots. And also we're looking at pretty gusty winds. You see how these lines are fairly close together. That's likely going to lead to some pretty gusty winds as the system does push through. So what we want to look at now is a different model here. This is same concept, but this is the European model. So again, we need to back up one run. This one run goes out a little bit further than some of the kind of intermediate runs. So here we are again in Saturday, and you see the low pressure actually makes it a little bit further south, according to the Euro. And then you can see with the GFS, the low was already, fairly far north, but it was also significantly further west. And as we progress through into, this is now early Monday morning, you see that low pressure is tracking almost through the Cincinnati area, up through Columbus and up through Cleveland. So it takes a much more easterly track, in which case this would likely put us in an area of rain and snow. So still, even with this track, doesn't necessarily look like, a heavy snowstorm or anything like that, but this would lead to a little bit more rain snow kind of mix. So that's kind of what we're watching. The track is still uncertain, of course, as it always is. The consistent thing that we know is that at this point, we do know there will be a system moving through this weekend, and we do know that it's going to bring precipitation, and it's likely going to bring gusty winds with it. So whether that precipitation is in the form of rain or if it's in the form of snow, that's yet to be determined. We're leaning towards rain, as the kind of western track seems a bit more plausible given the kind of current conditions and the current weather patterns, but that is something we are keeping an eye on. So of course we'll have updates on that through the week, and then especially on Friday, as at that point we're only a couple days out, so by then we should have a much better handle on where it's going. So definitely make sure you check back through the week to see kind of what's going on. Again, we're expecting fairly quiet weather through the rest of the week, so be able to get out and kind of enjoy it. Temperatures won't be too hateful, be breezy at times, but not too bad overall. So with that, I'm meteorologist Zach Batten. I thank you all for joining me this morning, and I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.